Naomi knew she couldn't fight Karen with force. Karen was the type of woman who thrived on confrontation, feeding off the chaos she created. Naomi needed something smarter, something more calculated. Her mind spun, calculating, until a small light flickered in her mind. Karen craved attention, power, and Naomi would use that against her. The first part of the plan was simple: gather evidence. Karen, in her arrogance, had always been so loud, so unashamed. Naomi needed to capture it. The next day, she returned to the park, armed with her phone. At first, Naomi felt like a predator, lurking in the corners of the playground, recording Karen from the bench. Karen, of course, was in full form. She stood on the edge of the sandbox, shouting at kids to get out of her exclusive zone, and even yanked a toy from a toddler's hands when the child got too close to chase. Naomi's fingers itched to launch herself at her, but she held steady. Patience. It took 3 days of careful surveillance to build a collection. A clip of Karen scolding another child for a minor infraction, then calling the child's mother a slacker for not managing their kid. A clip of her publicly humiliating a babysitter for misplacing her latte. And the pièce de résistance, a video of Karen berating a young couple for not attending her elite playgroup before threatening to have them blacklisted from the park. With each video, Naomi felt a little more empowered. The clips weren't just damning, they were a microcosm of Karen's reign of terror. The more Naomi watched, the more she realized this was bigger than just her. Karen had hurt so many people in ways that were just as invisible as Naomi's. Anger had been. Everyone was afraid to stand up. On the 4th day, Naomi created a TikTok account, Near Playground Karen. She spent the evening editing the footage, selecting the most damning moments, then adding biting captions. Exclusive playgroup, application fee, your dignity, and Karen's child abuse hotline. 1-800-BUY-A-SHOVEL. When the first video went live, Naomi felt a small surge of satisfaction, but she held her breath. Within hours, the video had gone viral. Likes, shares, and comments flooded the screen faster than Naomi could keep up. There were hundreds of people who had never met her, but could feel the truth in her words. And the comments? She did this to my kid too. Karen is the reason. I moved. You go, Mama. We've been dealing with this for years. Naomi's phone buzzed constantly, but there was no turning back now. She uploaded more footage the next day, then another video the day after. The videos ranged from funny to infuriating, but they all had one thing in common. They made Karen look ridiculous. Entitled, incompetent, no longer the queen bee of the playground, but a petty tyrant whose reign was about to be exposed. Chapter 5. Time Naomi saw Karen at the park, it was like looking at her through a new lens. Karen was still the same. High heels, snappy comments, and a glare that could freeze water. But Naomi saw the cracks in the facade now, the desperation in the way Karen looked around at the other parents, as if she expected someone to approach her and beg for forgiveness. The others, though, were starting to look at her differently. Naomi wasn't the only one who had had enough. Karen's world was starting to shift, and she didn't even know it yet. A week passed, and the viral videos kept spreading. Local news stations began to pick up the story. Karen of the playground had become a meme. She was no longer just the villain of Naomi's personal story. She was the villain of the entire community. Then Naomi made the final move, the live stream. She organized a community cleanup day at the park, inviting everyone who had been affected by Karen's bullying. It was a subtle trap, but a trap nonetheless. Naomi knew that Karen couldn't resist the idea of being in the spotlight. If Naomi made it big enough, Karen would have to show up, and Naomi would be ready. The day arrived, sunny and perfect. Naomi's phone was charged, her heart racing as she stood at the entrance to the park, making small talk with other parents and waiting. It was only a matter of time. Then, like clockwork, Karen appeared, strutting through the gates with a look of disdain that could melt the pavement. Her heels clicked like the ticking of a time bomb. Her arms crossed. She had, predictably, dressed for the occasion, a brand new floral dress and oversized sunglasses. She didn't even glance at Naomi as she walked past, but Naomi wasn't looking for a confrontation. Not yet. The cleanup began. Naomi played her part, picking up trash, chatting with the other parents. But her eyes never left Karen. The moment was coming. She could feel it. And then, just as expected, Karen stepped into the sandbox, her high-pitched voice rising above the low murmur of conversation. "Eli, what are you doing near my son?" Eli, focused on building his sandcastle, didn't notice Karen's approach. His little hand reached for a plastic shovel, brushing too close to Chase's pile of toys. "Don't touch that," Karen snapped, slapping the toy out of Eli's hand. "My son is very particular about his things." Naomi's heart pounded in her chest as she whipped out her phone. The camera blinked to life. Her finger hovered over the live button. The crowd went silent. Naomi's voice rang out, steady and calm. "Say hello to the internet, Karen." The cheery moment was electric, the tension so thick it could have been sliced with a knife. Karen froze. Her mouth parted, but no sound came out. The realization hit her, then. The very thing she had been avoiding all along. She was no longer in control. Naomi had taken her power, and with it, her dignity. Naomi hit the button. The world would finally see what Karen truly was. Karen's eyes widened, her perfect veneer cracking like glass under pressure. She turned slowly, her gaze locking with Naomi's, but Naomi didn't flinch. The phone was still raised, capturing the scene in real time. Every word, every gesture, about to be immortalized for the world to see. "You're insane," Karen spat, voice trembling, the facade crumbling as the crowd around them grew, their interest peaked. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? You'll regret this." Naomi's fingers tightened around her phone. "No, Karen, I think you're about to regret this." The silence that followed was thick, pregnant with the weight of what was coming. Parents nearby whispered, some inching closer, some backing away, unsure of how to react. Naomi's heart pounded, but it wasn't fear that clenched her chest. It was power. She was done being the silent victim. Karen took a step forward, her heels clicking on the asphalt, but it was a false bravado. Naomi could see it in her eyes. Panic. Karen's control was slipping. "You can't do this. Do you have any idea how much I've done for this park? For this community?" Her voice was a shrill crescendo, desperate. "People like me don't get treated like this." Naomi didn't give an inch. "People like you?" she repeated, voice calm, but her words hit with the weight of truth. "You mean people who use their power to intimidate others, who think they can slap a kid and get away with it, who hide behind a title to get what they want?" Karen's face reddened, her chest heaving with frustration, but Naomi wasn't done. "You've hurt so many people, Karen. You've bullied, belittled, humiliated. But now it's your turn to feel powerless." The live stream was picking up steam. The notifications flooded in. Hundreds of people were watching, some commenting, others sharing. Naomi's message was being heard. This was not how things were going to continue. Karen was no longer the queen. She was the joke. And then it happened. A voice from the crowd, hesitant at first, then stronger. "She's right. Karen's been like this for years." A woman stepped forward. Someone Naomi had seen at the park before. She was quiet, always keeping to herself. But now she was speaking up. Another voice joined in. "She made my daughter cry last year when she didn't let her use the slide. Called her a failure." A few parents, bolder now, stepped into the circle. Naomi could feel the shift. The power that Karen had clung to for so long, vanity, fear, privilege, was disintegrating right in front of her eyes. The kingdom had been nothing more than a house of cards, and Naomi had knocked it down piece by piece. Karen's eyes darted to the faces around her. They weren't on her side anymore. They had all seen the truth, and with that realization, Karen's anger turned into something darker, something desperate. "You're all insignificant. None of you matter. I will make sure this whole thing blows up in your faces. You think you've won? You think people will care about a few stupid videos? You have no idea who you're dealing with." Naomi stood tall, unwavering. "We know exactly who we're dealing with." And that was the moment, the climax that Naomi had been building toward, the moment where the floodgates opened, where everything shifted. She was no longer just a victim of Karen's cruelty. She was the catalyst, the one who had thrown the stone that cracked the glass. Naomi's voice rang out across the park, clear and firm. "I'm done letting you control this space. I'm done letting you tear people down. This is over, Karen." The crowd, once hesitant, now began to move in unison. Their collective power was undeniable. Karen's shoulders sagged, the weight of the truth crashing down on her. She staggered. back, hands trembling at her sides, her mouth opening and closing as if she could still find some way to salvage the situation. But there was no saving her now. A police officer appeared at the edge of the park, called by someone in the crowd, maybe a concerned parent or just a passerby who had seen the drama unfold. He walked toward Karen, who was now almost in tears, clutching at her purse like it was her last lifeline. Naomi saw the moment of defeat in her eyes. She had nothing left. "I'm going to have you arrested for this," Karen hissed, trying to hold on to whatever power she could. The officer stopped, in front of her, unfazed. "Ma'am, we've had multiple reports of your behavior, and I'm afraid it's finally caught up with you." The humiliation was complete. Naomi didn't need to say another word. The officer turned to Karen and began speaking to her in a low, authoritative tone. Naomi didn't stay to listen. She had won. She had exposed Karen for the fraud she was, and the park, the community, was free from her poison. As Naomi turned to leave, she heard it. Something that made her heart swell. A cheer, quiet at first, tentative, but soon growing in strength as more and more parents and children began clapping. Some were laughing in disbelief at how quickly things had turned. Others were simply relieved. The park, for the first time, in so long, felt like a place of freedom, a place where kids could play without fear. Naomi walked out with Eli by her side, his hand nestled in hers. He looked up at her, eyes wide, a hesitant smile creeping onto his face. "Did we really do it?" Naomi squeezed his hand, her heart lighter than it had been in days. "Yes, baby. We really did." As they left the park, Naomi didn't feel the exhaustion she had felt before. She felt something else, something rare and powerful. She felt like she had finally found her place in this world, no longer silenced by fear or doubt. And Karen? Well, Naomi was sure she would never forget. The lesson learned that day. The lesson that power built on fear was always destined to fall. The sun was high and relentless, beating down on the local park like a heat lamp over a stage. Children's laughter danced on the breeze, mixing with the rhythmic creak of swings and the faint whir of a snow cone truck idling in the distance. Naomi adjusted the strap of her canvas tote and squinted toward the sandbox, where her 6-year-old son, Eli, was building an elaborate fortress with a determined look plastered across his dirt-smudged face. He was in his world, his happy place, and for the first time all week, so was she. This park had become a sanctuary. After juggling late-night shifts at the diner and her part-time gig cleaning offices, these weekend afternoons were sacred. Naomi's whole body ached most days, but here, beneath the dappled shade of the sycamores, watching Eli dig moats and construct crumbly towers, she felt lighter. A sudden shriek cracked through the calm like a gunshot. Naomi whipped around. A blonde woman in oversized sunglasses was marching across the mulch path, her heels crunching like firecrackers against the bark. Her face was tight with fury, lips pursed in a way that made her expensive lipstick look like a blood smear. She zeroed in on the sandbox like a missile. "You little monster!" The woman screamed, and before Naomi could process what was happening, the woman raised her hand and slapped. It wasn't hard, not quite, but it was fast. A sharp, dismissive flick across Eli's arm. Not enough to bruise, maybe, but enough to shock him. Enough to make him stumble back and fall onto the sand, eyes wide, mouth opening in a silent cry. Naomi's feet moved before her brain caught up. "Hey, hey," she shouted, sprinting the short distance and dropping to her knees beside Eli. "Are you okay? Baby, what happened?" He threw sand at my son," the woman snapped, hands on her hips like a cartoon villain. "I warned him once." He didn't listen. "I don't tolerate brats." Naomi stared at her, heart slamming against her ribs. "You put your hands on my child." "I corrected him," the woman said, chin lifting. "Maybe if you actually parented, I wouldn't have had to." People were watching now. Parents and kids had frozen mid-play, conversations suspended in midair. A dad near the slide started pulling his daughter closer. A teenager fumbled for her phone. Naomi stood slowly, placing herself between Eli and the woman. "Who do you think you are?" "I'm someone who doesn't let little punks run wild," the woman said, brushing imaginary dust off her designer blouse. "Your boy was throwing sand at my son's face," Eli sniffled. "I didn't. I was trying to show him the moat. Naomi looked down at him, saw the heartbreak, the confusion, and something inside her shifted. She turned back to the woman. Voice steal? You assaulted a 6-year-old over sand. The woman didn't flinch. Oh, please. He'll live. Maybe next time he'll think twice before being a delinquent. Naomi felt her nails dig into her palms. What's your name? The woman tilted her head. Karen. Of course it was. Karen folded her arms. And just so you know, my husband's a lawyer. So, unless you want a defamation suit, I suggest you keep walking. Naomi blinked. You think you can hit my child, lie about it, and threaten me? I didn't lie. And I'll have you know I'm on the neighborhood committee. People listen to me. Karen turned and gestured toward the other parents. Who's going to back her up, huh? This angry woman with a filthy kid? The air left Naomi's lungs like she'd been sucker punched. Someone should have said something. Anyone. But no one did. Heads turned away. A woman with a stroller shuffled off. The dad from earlier offered Naomi an awkward glance, but quickly looked down. The silence screamed louder than any words. A park ranger eventually came by, summoned by someone in the background. He was young, probably barely 20, and clearly out of his depth. Naomi explained what happened. Karen offered a smooth, practiced smile and told a different story. She claimed Eli threw a bucket at her son, that Naomi had become aggressive, that she feared for her safety. The ranger scratched his head. There's no surveillance here, ma'am. Maybe just try to keep some distance for now, okay? Naomi's chest was burning. She scooped Eli up into her arms, his cheek warm against her shoulder, and walked away in stunned silence. No one stopped her. No one followed. They reached the parking lot, and Naomi gently buckled Eli into his booster seat, brushing a bit of sand off his pants. He looked up at her with red eyes. I didn't mean to make her mad, he whispered. Naomi knelt beside the door and touched his face. You didn't, baby. You did nothing wrong. He nodded, but he didn't believe it. The scar wasn't on. His skin, it was under it. Quiet, invisible. Naomi got into the driver's seat and stared at her trembling hands on the wheel. Karen had smiled as they left. Smiled. As if she'd won. But Naomi wasn't done. She looked at Eli in the rearview mirror, saw him fiddling with the straps of his seatbelt, trying to be brave. Her jaw clenched. This wasn't over. Not even close. The following Monday, Naomi stood outside the community center holding a folder stuffed with printed emails, handwritten testimonies, and a copy of the park's code of conduct. Her sneakers tapped against the concrete as she waited for her scheduled meeting with the city's recreational supervisor. She'd called 3 times, left voicemails, filed an online complaint. This was the only appointment they'd given her. 15 minutes in a fluorescent-lit office between someone's lunch and a board meeting. When the supervisor finally waved her in, Naomi launched into her carefully rehearsed explanation. She detailed everything. The slap, the false accusations, the rangers in action, and how Karen had manipulated the moment to make herself the victim. She included names, dates, even her son's drawing, one he made the night after the incident, was included in the folder. A sad little stick figure Karen with sharp teeth and storm clouds over her head. The supervisor listened politely, even nodded a few times, but his tone was clipped when he finally spoke. Unfortunately, without third-party witnesses or video evidence, we can't pursue disciplinary action. Naomi blinked. So that's it? He gave a sympathetic shrug. We'll keep an eye on things. That night, Naomi sat on the edge of her bathtub, staring blankly at the water running from the faucet. Her whole body ached again, not just from exhaustion this time, but from fury, from helplessness. Eli was asleep down the hall, clutching his stuffed dinosaur the way he used to during storms. She had done everything the right way. Calmly, legally, respectfully. And Karen? She had strutted away without a scratch, without consequence. It didn't make sense. It didn't feel real. 2 days later, Naomi returned to the park, hoping things might settle. She told herself Eli needed normalcy, that maybe Karen had been warned quietly, maybe she'd back off. She was wrong. Karen was already there, perched like a queen bee on the park bench closest to the sandbox, surrounded by 2 other moms who hung on her every word. Her son, a pale, pinched-faced boy named Chase, was hoarding every toy shovel in sight. Naomi tried to ignore her, She found a quiet patch under a tree and helped Eli build a new sandcastle. They were halfway through decorating the walls with sticks and pebbles when a shadow fell across them. "Well, well," Karen said with an exaggerated smile. "Look who came crawling back." Naomi didn't answer. Karen knelt down, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "Hey, Eli, remember to keep your hands to yourself this time, okay? My Chasey's very sensitive." Eli shrank against his mother's side. Naomi rose, slowly. "Back off," she said quietly. Karen stood, laugh snorting. "Oh, relax. I'm just looking out for the community. You should be thanking me. Most people wouldn't be so gracious after you tried to drag their name through the mud." "You hit my kid." Karen's smile widened. "Prove it." Naomi clenched her fists. Around them, other parents watched, again, but no one intervened. Not the man on the bench, not the mom near the monkey bars. No one wanted to be part of the drama. "Just like last time," Karen leaned in slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Keep pushing, and I'll file for a restraining order. Make your life a living hell. Don't think I won't." She sauntered off like she owned the wood chips beneath her feet. Naomi's chest burned. She gathered Eli and left. In the car, Eli said, "Can we go somewhere else next time?" Naomi looked at him through the rearview mirror, saw how small he looked curled into his seat, and felt something inside her turn. She wasn't just mad anymore, she was done. Later that week, Naomi visited the neighborhood Facebook group, an online bulletin board where parents swapped recommendations, posted lost pet alerts, and debated whether leaf blowers should be banned. She hesitated, fingers hovering above the keyboard, but instead of writing a post, she began scrolling, searching, looking. What she found was a trail. Karen's name appeared often. Comments scattered across months. People had posted complaints about someone shaming other moms, about a certain woman monopolizing park equipment, berating babysitters, even blocking the entrance to the playground while reserving spots for her VIP playdates. Names weren't used, but the pattern was unmistakable, and people responded, with eye rolls, with subtle complaints of their own, but always too vague, too cautious. Karen had been at this for a long time. Her reign extended beyond Naomi. She was the sun around which nervous parents orbited, too afraid to step into the heat. Naomi closed the laptop slowly. This wasn't about a single slap. This was about power. Karen had it. Everyone else was afraid to challenge it. That night, Naomi opened a private group chat with 3 other moms, women she remembered from the park, from Karen's little entourage. She asked a simple question. "Has she ever gone after your kid?" One by one, the replies came in. "Yes, absolutely. All the time." Naomi stared at the blinking cursor for a long time before typing back. "Then it's time we do something about it." She didn't know exactly what the plan would be yet. But she knew this. Karen's kingdom was built on fear and silence. It was time to shine a light into every corner. And when it came crashing down, Naomi would be the one holding the match.